Hi, I'm Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. I am so happy to have with me today Ben Wikler. And if you're living under a rock, you might not know it, but most other people know he is head of the Wisconsin Democratic Party. He is a force to be reckoned with in the Democratic Party in general, a master organizer. Welcome, Ben. It's great to have you.
It's great to be with you. Great to be with Contrarian members of Contrarian Nation, and we have a fight on our hands. So this is exactly the right time to talk.
Absolutely. What is that fight, and why is it important to people outside Wisconsin?
So Wisconsin's state Supreme Court is maybe the second, one of the very top most important judicial bodies in America because Wisconsin is the fulcrum of American politics. It was the closest state in the United States in 2024. It's the only state where five of the last seven presidential races has come down to less than 1 percentage point. No other state has had more than two. And in that context, over and over, we have elections that come down to microscopic margins of error where voting rights, questions around gerrymandering, questions around election certification, all those things that are adjudicated by our state Supreme Court affect national outcomes. So the 2028 presidential election, that the Senate majority in 28, the House majority in 26 and 28, all those things depend on what happens in this one state. And the state Supreme Court has operated for, or had operated for 15 years under Republican majorities as a rubber stamp for whatever MAGA billionaires wanted it to do. Now, that ended in 2023 in the most expensive election, judicial election in American political history. When Janet Protasiewicz defeated Dan Kelly, we won a pro-democracy majority on the state Supreme Court, and it was like the shackles were taken off. Wisconsin got fair maps and in the state legislature, and Democrats now have a fighting chance to flip both chambers in 2026. Restrictions on ballot drop boxes and absentee ballot returns were lifted by the state Supreme Court. Those things made a big difference. Tammy Baldwin won by 9/10 of a point in the Senate race in 2024, in part thanks to the fact that the state was less rigged for Republican control. But in 2025, a progressive state Supreme Court justice is retiring. On April 1st, there'll be election to fill that seat. And there is a just explosively bad, hyper-partisan MAGA Republican politician named Brad Shimmel, who was Scott Walker's attorney general, running for that seat against Susan Crawford, who is the kind of common sense, decent rule of law judge that everyone would want to be in front of if you ever had a day in court. And Elon Musk has decided to make it his personal mission to elect Brad Shimmel to ensure that the far right has a rubber stamp in the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. So wherever you might be in the nation, this is both critical to the future of American democracy and freedom, and it's a chance to defeat Elon Musk and the forces of darkness that are ripping the country to shreds.
Tell us how bad this guy would be. This is not just a conservative justice, not even a right wing justice. Tell us some of what he has said and done that should give people pause as to whether he should be on any court, let alone a state Supreme Court.
Brad Shimmel, who you can learn about, by the way, on bradschimmel.org. It's a handy website we created for the edification of Americans. He loves the 1849 pre-Civil War abortion ban in Wisconsin. He's asked, what is flawed about that law, which refers to quickening and uses pre-modern medicine language to criminalize, make abortions felony. He said he's prejudged any future case by saying there's not a constitutional right to abortion in Wisconsin, which is news to lots of legal scholars. There's an active, argument about this. It's the kind of thing that the Supreme Court might well make a decision about. He is endorsed by groups not only opposing all abortion and fertility treatment, they also oppose what they call artificial contraception. And they think that the Brad Shimmel is their guy. He's has this record, especially in cases involving violence against women, where he just doesn't really go for serious accountability. When he was attorney general, he sat on thousands of untested sexual assault kits and didn't look for whether there were DNA matches for repeat offenders. A current Supreme Court justice at that time was the head of the Victims of Crime Office in the Department of Justice and went to him and asked for those kits to be tested, and he refused to do anything about it. And he only started testing the rape kits once it became a political issue. There's a case where he was negotiating a plea deal with a child pornography enthusiast whose lawyer gave a campaign contribution to Brad Shimmel, and then suddenly the person got a extremely lenient sentence. But the other side of the coin for him is that while he doesn't seem concerned about those things, he's extremely concerned about doing whatever helps Republican politicians attain power. So he is the guy who defended Scott Walker in court over voter suppression laws, over gerrymandering, over corruption investigations. There was a case called Planned Parenthood versus Brad Shimmel, where Susan Crawford, our candidate, was the attorney for Planned Parenthood, and Brad Shimmel was there trying to do an extra constitutional attack on reproductive freedom. He spent money, taxpayer money, on commemorative coins emblazoned with his motto "Kick ass every day" when he was the attorney general, but he didn't have any any funds to do things that would actually benefit Wisconsinites. And he's now going around saying that this election is a chance for his donor base to recapture the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. So we know from experience that when he has power, he just awards more power to Republican politicians. And now it's very clear he would be on the side of Robin Vos, our terrible Wisconsin Assembly Speaker. He'd be on the side of Donald Trump. He'd be on the side of Elon Musk. He just had an interview where he said, well, whether you like him or not, it's clear they've gotten an awful lot done in this administration very quickly. And he seems to be very enthusiastic about them. And the idea that he would cast the tie-breaking vote on Wisconsin State Supreme Court is it just makes me want to pull my hair out.
Now, 2023 was the most expensive Supreme Court race. I suspect this one is going to beat it if it hasn't already. How much is Elon Musk pouring in, and why do you suppose he's doing it?
So Mother Jones just reported that he's now up to $4 million in spending in this election. That number, it says 4.2 groups tied to Musk has poured in. That number keeps going up. I think that, I mean, at one level, he's got his own lawsuit about trying to get direct Tesla sales in Wisconsin. So there's always something in it for Elon Musk directly, and I'm sure he'd be thrilled to buy a court majority that would side with him, regardless of what the law says. But at another level, what he's tweeting about, he's posted 3 times this morning, for example. He's tweeting with these kind of Republican conspiracy theories. He's talking about quote unquote election fraud. And what that means is essentially Republicans' ability to lock in voter suppression, because there's a long history in this state of Republicans writing laws that target especially young voters and Black voters to try to stop them from being able to cast ballots. And there have been whistleblowers who were Republican legislative aides who said that Republicans were briefed on the impact of their laws on those groups, and they loved it. They were giddy, according to the whistleblower. And those are exactly the cases Brad Shimmel has worked on to support those voter suppression laws. So for Elon Musk and for Donald Trump, what they want is a Brad Shimmel who will do whatever it takes to keep them in power. Wisconsin was the case that came closest to overturning the 2020 election. It came down to a 1-vote margin on our state Supreme Court to try to take up Donald Trump's case to nullify the decision of the electorate. So in a situation where Trump and MAGA and Musk and Vance and whatever try to hold on to power in 2028, it'd be very frightening for Brad Shimmel to be on the court. And it seems to me like what Elon Musk wants is to short circuit any process for democratic accountability as he dismembers our Constitution and attacks veterans and healthcare and medical research, all these things that people rely on.
Now, he may have an awful lot of money, but when I came out to Wisconsin in 2023, I saw the Ben Army, which was the product of what you call a 365-day-a-year campaign. Tell us what that is and why it's so important to have that when you go into an off-year election like 2025, when you have a critical race, but congressmen aren't on the ballot, senators aren't on the ballot, the president isn't on the ballot.
In Wisconsin, we organize year round. We just don't stop. And frankly, it's a grassroots army of people across the state who make it their job to defend democracy and advance the cause of freedom and justice in the state and this nation. We have neighborhood teams of people who are taking responsibility for turning out every voter in their own community, and we have hundreds of them in small towns and big towns and suburbs and rural areas. And with that organizing infrastructure, in partnership with a ton of different grassroots organizations and partners, the union movement, and critically with great candidates and their campaigns. Susan Crawford is just a spectacular candidate for Supreme Court. It means that as soon as the last election's over, we're working on the next one. So we carried more than 80 staff into this year at the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. We have the biggest team of any state party in the country, and they're working with thousands of volunteers who go and knock on doors every weekend. And it's people who they know from Little League and from church and whatever else it might be. We have virtual phone banks. Anyone listening right now can go to wisdems.org/volunteer and join one of those phone banks. We work with groups like Swing Left, all these and Indivisible, all these different national groups. My own alma mater, Move On, to make sure there are volunteers across the country calling strong Democrats just to make sure they know there is this election. Susan Crawford versus Brad Shimmel on April 1st. We do relational organizing, friend to friend. So people are basically taking out their phones, loading their contact lists, and reaching out to people they know personally, often who aren't registered to vote at their current address, and reminding them you can same day register in Wisconsin. We have 2 weeks of early vote starting March 18th. Just make sure you bring your voter ID and your proof of address, and you can register at the polls. And all of that adds up to Democrats punching above their weight. In 2024, Democratic turnout fell in most of the country, but in Wisconsin, it rose. So Republican turnout went up even more. That's why Trump won by 9/10 of a percentage point. But we added Democratic votes in most counties, including most rural counties in Wisconsin. And those voters voted down ballot too, but they didn't all on the Republican side. So even in this Republican wave year, we won our U.S. Senate race. Tammy Baldwin and Kamala Harris got about the same number of votes, but tens of thousands of Republicans didn't vote down ballot for their Senate candidate, and we flipped 14 state legislative seats. And all of that we're bringing directly into this race. And when folks donate to us, go to wisdems.org/donate to contribute, or just wisdems.org. There's plenty of links on there. When you chip in, you're supporting that organizing operation. You're supporting our ability to work with Susan Crawford's campaign to make sure that every voter gets that this person who is destroying the American Constitution, Elon Musk, wants to team up with Brad Shimmel, the person who was at the heart of the attack on democracy in the state of Wisconsin itself, and that they want to lock in Republican control permanently. And you can fight back and not only open the door to a great and small d Democratic future for Wisconsin by winning this race, but also you can punch back against what Elon Musk is doing. This is our chance to show that we can get up off the mat, that we can fight. If you come to a Canvas kickoff, we have packed events jammed all over Wisconsin right now in the snow, people going out and talking to person after person. And the response is explosive. It's electric. But there's so much more to do, especially given the flood of money on the right. We need to turn these Republican attacks into a liability for them. We need to turn Elon Musk's money into a scarlet letter for Brad Shimmel so that voters who are mad about what Musk is doing vote against Shimmel and make sure Susan Crawford goes to our Supreme Court. And if we do that, we can send a jolt of energy to Democrats in every corner of the country.
I want to attest to something. I was out there in 2023. I think it was February. It was snowing so hard and the wind was blowing so hard, the snow was going horizontally. And yet I went out to a small office in the outskirts of Madison, and there were troops of people, young people, old people. I remember there was a woman who was in her gap year between high school and college, and she was running people out on the street. She was directing traffic. You have got people to take responsibility for their democracy. It is an amazing thing to see, and I only hope that other states, other state parties pick this up. Tell our readers, our listeners, one more time, because they are always asking, what is it that we can do to fight Donald Trump and Elon Musk now? So where do they call? What do they do if they either want to do the phone banking or they want to make a contribution?
If you want to help, make sure Susan Crawford beats Brad Shimmel and deal the first major electoral defeat to the Musk-Trump machine. Go to wisdems.org, wisdems.org. You can donate. You can sign up to volunteer. You can help us to help make sure that the richest person in the world doesn't buy the state Supreme Court in the tightest state in the country. You can also go to crawfordforwisconsin.com, and you can donate directly to Susan Crawford's campaign there and get involved in the campaign. We are working hand in glove together. We can use every hour of volunteer time that you can spare. We can put every dollar to work. This is go time, and we don't need to outspend the world's richest man to out-organize the forces of the right. We just need to make sure that every Democrat knows what is at stake. And if we do that, we can win, we can make history, we can turn the tide in a very dark moment. So this is all hands on deck, and we cannot wait to celebrate victory because, man, this win is going to feel sweet.
Ben, we're going to have you back before the election, and we hope you become a regular here. Your brand of enthusiastic, do it yourself, grassroots democracy action is exactly what we preach here at the Contrarian. We have volunteers who are taking pictures, sending videos of events, who are making a contribution to the democracy effort. So you are welcome here anytime. And I am sure my audience, this will not be the last they see of Ben Wikler. So Ben, thanks so much for coming. Best of luck with you. And Contrarian readers and viewers, you now know what to do when you say, what can I do? You can help elect a decent, modest, moderate, responsible Supreme Court justice in the state of Wisconsin, which is as important as any state. So thanks again, Ben, for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much, Jen. Take care.